coming out. I would like to ask the town clerk, Karen Gowell, to read the vote.
Notice of annual town meeting. Notice is hereby given of the annual town meeting to be held on Monday, May 11, 2026 at the East Lyme High School Auditorium at 7 p.m. to act on the following. 1. To review and discuss the budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2026 as recommended by the Board of Finance. A. In accordance with Chapter 7.3 of the Town Charter, the moderator shall adjourn the annual budget meeting to a referendum on the voting machines. The budget resolution will be submitted by the persons qualified to vote in the town meeting by referendum by machine vote, which referendum shall take place on May 21, 2026 at the East Lyme Community Center from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 2. To adopt a 5-year capital plan. 3. To conduct such other business as may properly come before the meeting. This was dated at East Lyme, Connecticut, the 15th day of April, 2026. It was posted on the signpost and on the town website. It was recorded in the town clerk's office, and it was advertised in the day paper.
Thank you, Madam Town Clerk. I'd like to start by going over the ground rules. Under Connecticut General Statute 7-6, to vote at this meeting, you must be an elector of the town or must be a U.S. citizen 18 years or older who owns property on the grand list of October 1st, 2025 in the amount of $1,000 or more. 2. Under Connecticut General Statutes 9-36, any person who votes at this meeting who is an eligible to vote or is an eligible voter who votes more than once would be subject to a fine no less than $300 and no more than $500, prison for no less than 1 year or no more than 2 years, and be disenfranchised. Anyone who attempts to vote assuming the name of a legally qualified person shall be found guilty of a Class B felony and shall be disenfranchised. Please do not conduct dialogue amongst yourselves and address all the questions to the moderator, me. If you wish to speak, please come to the microphone. We have 2 here today. Give your name and address for the record. If you're not eligible to vote, please make that fact known before you address the meeting. Please note there are no expenditures being voted on tonight. The agenda item on the 5-year capital plan is not an expenditure, so we can only approve or deny the plan, not amend it. In the event we need tellers and checkers, I'll appoint the register and assistant register if they are needed. The budget has been referred to referendum. Will be referred to referendum according to Town Charter item 7.3, so there will be no motion on the budget. We will simply have a reasonable discussion, allow for an exchange of information, and allow final questions and comments made prior to the referendum on May 21st. After that is over, we'll entertain a second item on the agenda, which is the 5-year capital plan. I will open the meeting to any discussion. Would anyone like to be recognized? Mr. Frisella.
So good evening, everyone, and welcome. James, if you want to go to the slide deck, thank you. So I'm just going to, we've been over this a couple of times. This is more of an abridged version of the presentation that was made in some of the previous meetings, but we'll just go over some things tonight. Let's talk about the budget process. So, in developing this budget, that we're going to vote on in a few days, the department heads, they submit their budget request to me, and then I meet with our finance director and the department heads, and we have conversations, and we try to come up with what can we do to maybe trim their budget requests? What areas can we find efficiencies? Is everything that they're requesting absolutely essential? So we go through that process. And after those conversations, we trim down the budget as much as we think is advisable, and then I pass that budget on to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen then meets, and they go through a similar process. They invite the department heads in. The department heads will defend their budget. Again, they'll be quizzed by the members of the Board of Selectmen, and the board will try to find other areas where maybe additional efficiencies or reductions can be made. At the end of that process, then the Board of Selectmen passes the budget forward to the Board of Finance. Again, we go through a third iteration where the Board of Finance reviews line item by line item, the entire budget. They invite, again, the department heads to come in, and they will question the department heads on specific line items, and they will make a determination if it's essential or if it's something, again, that we might be able to find additional efficiencies. At the end of the day, the Board of Finance passes a budget, and then we end up ultimately at referendums so that everyone in town can vote on that budget. We also tonight are going to be dealing with the capital improvement program. That is a 5-year plan that identifies items that we will purchase over the next 5 years, and in the next year, again, we will try to identify those items that are truly essential, and so that we don't buy things we don't absolutely need. And we're very careful about that. We'll talk a little bit more about the capital improvement committee and how we arrived at some of those numbers. Okay, so let's look at the budget initiatives. This year, in our budget, we are hiring 3 additional firefighters, 15 career firefighters. That'll allow us, we have 3 shifts. Right now we have 4 firefighters on the shift. This will allow us to have 5 firefighters around the clock, 24/7, 365 on each shift. Now, maybe some of you would remember a week or 2 ago, there was an article in the New London Day about fire services. They talked about Ground, they talked about Waterford, they talked about East Lyme. And in all 3 of those municipalities, they were trying to add 3 firefighters. And it just made sense. They were trying to get their levels, I think Waterford was maybe trying to get up to 16 or 17 career firefighters. We're trying to get to 15. But you really need, for towns this size, with the number of people that live here, you really need a fire service that robust. The ultimate goal is to get to 18 firefighters. And we really did some heavy lifting this year with getting 3 more, getting up to 15. I don't think we're going to try to ask for 3 more next year, but maybe over the next 3 years, maybe we can add one more firefighter a year to ultimately get up to 18. And what's so great about that is that gives you 6 firefighters on every shift. We have 3 firehouses. We have Flanders, we have downtown Niantic, and then we have Station 2, which is out near the Brett's Park or the Lyme Tavern, that one down that way. And that would allow us to have 2 firefighters around the clock in each one of those stations. So, really the 18 is the ideal number. We're working towards that. We've increased police, 2 officers in this budget. The other thing is, I've talked about this before, it's, again, increasing cash capital. And what that means is, we're going to collect the taxes, we're going to have money, and the capital items that we have to pay for, we can either borrow money, we can bond the money out to pay for these essential things that we need in our capital plan, or we can pay some of it by cash. And the more that we pay with cash, that means we have to borrow less, and we pay less interest for all those years into the future that we're paying off that debt. So if we're ever going to turn the corner so that we're borrowing less than we are paying off every year, we have to continue to try to increase the use of cash capital in that portion of the budget. So the goal is to get up to $2 million. We're not up to that level quite yet, but we're doing more than we did last year in cash capital, and we'll see some numbers later on in the presentation. But that's the way that we turn the corner, and we're trying to do that. Emphasis on maintaining buildings, vehicles, other assets. I mentioned this before. As part of the Capital Improvement Committee, we went around to all the various facilities in town. We went to the buildings. We saw the trucks of the public at the public safety, not the safety complex, but the public resource building down in Capitol Drive, where they keep all the equipment. And they have a car wash in there. And when they're through using the trucks that have salt and other materials on the dump trucks, they wash down the underbodies, it's an actual car wash, and they're very careful to do that regularly, so we preserve the assets that we have, so we get as much longevity out of those items that we're paying for in the capital improvement plan and the capital budget. IT infrastructure investments, dark fiber. Well, everything now is, information is transmitted by light waves through fiber optic cable, and dark fiber means that that cable, unless it's transmitting our signals, it's dark. There's no other signals on it. So it gives us a more secure and robust way to communicate between the police station, the fire station, the schools, the town hall. Dark fiber is a far more secure way to transmit information. Not as likely to be corrupted with nefarious signals that might get into the fiber if we're sharing it with someone else. So we're moving to dark fiber. You've read about ransomware, cyber attacks. We live in that world now, and we're doing as much as we can to harden our software, our IT department, to prevent those types of attacks in our town. And we're increasing our reliance on technology. And part of that technology, in the payroll department and the finance department, better software, and the police department, they have the body cams now. This is all related to technology and improving how we do things and making it more efficient. So what are the drivers? What causes all the costs that we have to pay? This year, there was an increase in health insurance of 10.4%. We have increased employer pension contributions. We've had increased legal fees. There's been many lawsuits that we've been involved with over the last couple of years, and those result in legal fees. We're hoping we're getting to a climate and posture now where maybe we'll be less litigious and we won't have as much need, but fees are going up, and everywhere we turn, we always need a legal opinion, whether it's a zoning matter, employment relations matter, so we can't seem to get away from that. Software costs, ADP in our finance department, we're moving to more efficient systems. We're doing the payroll, we're retiring some of the older systems, and it's increased efficiency, staffing-wise. Axon, that's the software that runs the cameras that the police officers wear, the body cams. It's necessary, but it's expensive. And Adobe, that's for word processing and PDF creation. We've streamlined some of that. Instead of everybody having their own Adobe software, we've bought site licenses, so we've reduced the amount we have to pay for some of that software. So these are all improvements, but they're expensive and they cost money. The other area was the 3 additional career firefighters and the 2 additional police officers. So these are the areas where town operations costs increased. Let's talk about improvements and efficiencies. It isn't all just spend. We're trying to do a better job. We've implemented new policies and procedures and software. I mentioned a moment ago about implementing automated payroll solutions. So going to ADP and some of the improvements there reduces the amount of people that you need to process the payroll. So that saves us money. Public Works Communications via mobile app, they have another way now to communicate when the trucks are on the road. They're trying to communicate with the police station and where all the trucks are in relation to each other, especially when we're doing a snow plowing operation. Very important that they can communicate, and this is a more efficient and less expensive way for them to do that. Staff efficiencies, we just said we're able to reduce staff in a couple of areas due to software improvements. This year we did implement a hiring and spending freeze. We keep an eye every month on where we are in the budget and how far we've expended throughout the year. We look at the percentage of time that's gone by and the percentage of budget that we have expended. And at one point we did have to suspend hiring and expenses. We did not hire the 5th grounds crew spot for Parks and Recreation. They've had to make do without that extra person, but the grass is getting cut, and they've found ways to find efficiencies within their department. And we did have to delay hiring in the finance department staff. And as I said, we did freeze all discretionary expenses. So, you know, if you needed another ream of paper, did you really need it? Can you print on both sides? Make sure you're using up the pens until they're totally on ink, and don't buy things that we don't need. So we've been very careful. It puts pressure on the departments, but that's what we need to do. We're trying to be efficient. We understand that it's taxpayers' money that we're spending. So let's just take a look at some of the numbers. So the department heads, when they came to see me, the demand was $106,234,596. And so went through that process where I met with the department heads. I cut $1,035,175. And so I proposed to the Board of Selectmen $105,199,421 budget. That's what I proposed to our board. The Board of Selectmen took another review, as we said earlier, and they cut $1,666,914 from that budget, and they presented and proposed $103,532,507. They proposed that to the Board of Finance. So that's where the starting point was for the Board of Finance. I think we did a pretty reasonable job. They were able to find $784,000 more, but they were able to cut from the budget. So we ended up at $748,439. So that is the proposed budget as we sit here tonight. And you can see more detail in the handout, but this kind of shows the progression, how we got to where we are. It does show debt service, and debt service is $7,266,120. That's why it's so important to try to get that number down. And that's what this whole talk about cash capital does. When we get to the point where we're paying off more debt than we're borrowing every year, that is the inflection point. That's the point where we start to turn the corner. And we're getting close. But that's why the cash capital is so important. By using cash capital instead of borrowing, we can get to that inflection point sooner, where we're paying off more debt every year than we're borrowing. And that's the beginning of stopping the downward debt spiral. So how do we pay for all that? Where does the money come from? Tax collections will be $84,983,000. Licenses and permits, intergovernment revenues, charges for services, fines and assessments, investment earnings, $1,420,000 in investment earnings. Now I want to credit Kevin Gervais, who's sitting over there, and he's been very diligent in how we handle the money that's sitting in basically our checking account. The money comes in, we get the tax payments, it sits there, and then it gets spent throughout the year. But he's been very careful to invest that money so that we earn money on it in a better way than we had in the past. Rents and royalties, other revenues, some other miscellaneous financing sources. But that number has to match the budget. You'll see 102,748, 439 at the bottom. And you'll see that that is a change from the previous year of 6.3%. And again, you can see the expenditures. And we see that we're spending 36.45 more on cash capital. That's the bottom line. Whereas in fiscal year 2026, we used $998,000 in cash capital, and this year we're going up to $1.3 million, which is an improvement and an increase of 36.45%. So we want to see that number increase. So what is the impact on the mill rate? So with the proposed budget, the value of 1 mill is $2,866,881. We're using a collection rate of 99%. That means that we expect to collect 99% of taxes owed by taxpayers. We're expecting 28,000 in delinquencies. So the collection rate for 1 mill is $2,838,214. So the collected tax receipts would be $83,633,845, and then there's an elderly tax relief of $57 million. So when we add all that up, the change from last year would be an increase of $5,090,580, and that converts to a mill rate of 1.48. And that is a mill increase, you can see on the bottom, of 5.28%. So what is the impact on homeowners in East Lyme for that mill rate? And here we can look, and let's just take a house that has a property value of $500,000. The assessed value would be $350,000. In 25-26, the amount that they would have paid is $9,804. With this budget, it would be $10,322. Year-over-year increase of $518. It's a monthly increase of $43. Every increase is important and it has an impact on every family. But one thing you do have to consider and remember is that we get a lot of service for that money and efficient service. We're very, very careful how we spend the taxpayers' dollar. And increase in public safety, that's an important, very important thing to consider. Our streets are well maintained, and you know, we had a harsh winter, and our public works just did a wonderful job plowing the snow. So we have to try to keep it in perspective. I think we get a lot for the dollars that we spend. So, if you just want to see the breakdown, this is for the capital budget. And we talked about, you know, on the capital plan, we went around and we looked at all the things that we buy in town, to trucks, and the roofs, and all the things that are capital expenditures. Not things that are used up during the year, but long-term items, usually worth over $25,000. That's one criteria for making it in the capital plan. So we started off with a total requested of $11,739,000. We had the Capital Improvement Plan Committee, and they were able to find reductions of $4,740,000. And so that plan went to the Board of Selectmen of $6,999,720. Board of Finance took another look at the capital plan, and they found additional deductions, and they reduced it by $1,112,445. So for a total of $5,887,275. And that's the capital plan that I'll be asking folks here tonight to approve as we move forward. This Capital Improvement Program Committee that I was just talking about, it was comprised of 2 members of the Board of Selectmen, 2 members of the Board of Finance, 2 members of the Board of Education, and 3 citizen representatives. And we all got together, you know, we would have meetings, many meetings, and we'd go over line by line as I said, we got on the senior bus and we went around to all the different facilities in town. It was very informative. And that's how we got to these much better numbers. Is by actually seeing the things that we were talking about. Do you really need that snow plow? Can that truck wait another 2 years? So that's how we were able to reduce the numbers the way we did. We also did a 5-year capital improvement plan, and you can see those numbers. That's a little more speculative in a sense. You're trying to look out 5 years, and you're not, you know, the year that's coming up is the year that you have the most information on and can make the most informed decisions. But also we have to look at long-term planning for police cars we're going to need in the future, fire trucks we're going to need, roofs that are going to have to be put on buildings. You know, fire trucks have become tremendously expensive, millions of dollars. So we try to project that so we have a plan and a framework to work within. And finally, there is a link, and if you want to see all the details, you can go to that link. And that's my presentation for this evening. I thank you for your attention. I hope I wasn't too long-winded. Thank you.
Mr. First Selectman. Would anyone else like to be heard?
You talking about the public?
Open to the public or anyone else? Yep.
Chairman,
If you don't mind, just come to the microphone.
the charter does require, I might say, that we have a free
Name, address, and record.
I'm Mike Schultz, Lovers Lane, East Lyme. My charter specifies that we're supposed to have a presentation tonight to the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and the Board of Education, per our charter. And we either live by the charter or we get rid of the charter. There are legal obligations associated with that. I'm not the attorney, but I specified at the Board of Selectmen meeting last week it was, that that's one of the things we need to do is honor our charter. If we're not going to do that, then we are not running this meeting as it should be run. But that's my statement for that. But I would like to come to the podium to address other concerns that I have to the public. I don't feel that it's right to have to face the whiteboard. And I've asked for that at the last meeting, and I thought we were going to be obliged to do that. It's not easy standing on this slanted floor.
Why don't you move that microphone so you can...
Sure.
Okay. You're going to move that, and then you can...
I'd like to come to the podium.
Yeah, more than one.
Yeah, there's the podium.
Thank you.
That's easier.
I was invited here tonight for entertainment, just so you know that. You can save that one for me. I repeat, I'm Mike Schultz. I live on Lovers Lane in East Lyme. Like so many other communities in East Lyme, there were other communities. East Lyme is in a budget quagmire. No one knows better than the Board of Education the needs of the school to support their established curriculum. The same applies to the Board of Selectmen. As they are responsible for keeping under review the present and future needs of the town. That's their job. And it states so, chapter 3.3 in our charter. So I question every year why we have dissension over needs when the real issues is financial. There's nothing to do. We've already determined what the needs are. Union contracts provide for salary and benefit increases that are beyond the amount reasonably necessary. From $4,000 to $13,000 increases this year. That's for the 26 and 27 budget. This obviously results in an increase in the mill rate and the tax burden for those that own property and live in East Lyme. There is no other question, or there's no question about that our education system is of high standard and our town services are exceptional. As a taxpayer on a fixed income, I find it necessary to question the necessity of such large compensation increases. It needs to be pointed out that even though employees contribute to the near criminal health insurance premiums, the annual cost for a single person is $18,000. If a single person with a spouse is $38,000, and for a family plan is $46,500. That's for insurance. And so the general public is picking up the majority of that. I think in many cases the teachers and other employers are in the 18 to 20% range that they pick up. But I just think you should be aware of those numbers. It isn't free. Now, it's not my intent to pass judgment on this budget, as we are not going to alter the financials on it. That's not the purpose of the town meeting. It is, however, my intent to bring to the attention of the taxpayers what these services cost. Our elected officials need to change the way we do business, because what we are doing nothing more than chasing the financial rabbit down one hole and down the next hole. It's time to stop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to be heard?
Hi, I'd like to use the podium too, because why not? Hi, I'm Carla Novolo, Upper Patagonia Road, and I would just like to ask, who here in this room got an 8.7% raise this year? Please raise your hands. So, show. There were absolutely 0 hands. Who got a 5% raise this year? Anybody? No. So what I would like to know is, how on earth did our elected town officials think they could come to us proposing an 8.7% increase with a straight face and justify it? You know what? I don't even have to look at those nice handouts you made to know that it is just nothing but a bunch of excuses and rationalizations. We taxpayers are not a pot of gold for you to have your cash cows and unlimited spending. I see absolutely no effort made to restrain spending. When are we going to talk about cuts? Let's see some cuts. And I talk about everything. I want every single dollar scrutinized, because there is waste everywhere, every level of government, including in our own town, every town. So you should be looking at every dollar that's coming from us taxpayers and questioning whether we really need it, and then make those cuts. And when those cuts start to feel painful, that's when you know that it's time that you've actually trimmed the fat, because there's always fat, and then cut deeper. So I want to see 0 budget increases, because every year, we're asked to pay more and more in taxes, and for what? And I'm talking about everything. Looking at you, Board of Education, You guys got all that COVID money and hired a whole bunch of staff, and now you're complaining about your outlays on like pension and benefits. Did you think that COVID pot of gold was going to last forever? And now you come to us, the taxpayers, to pick up the bill? Guess what? I'm done. I don't want to hear any excuses or rationalizations. I want to see a zero, because unless that number is a 0% increase in the town budget, I'm not voting for it. And I think every other taxpayer should stand up and say, we're done being your pot of gold, because we're not. There's no rationale. There's just a bunch of excuses. Oh, we had a lot of snow this year, so our snow budget was higher. Oh, our COVID money ran out. I don't care. Make the cuts. Bring down your spending, because all bureaucrats know how to do is tax and spend, and every year it just goes up and up and up. So everyone who thought you could come here today and justify 8.7%, sit down and have a hard look at your own budget at home and try telling me that you want to spend that much more on taxes. Everybody here who has a job and pays taxes and manages your own household budget knows that you have to make tough cuts. So do what we elected you to do and make those cuts. Because it's ridiculous that you keep thinking we're going to keep paying for your inefficiencies and lack of control. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard?
My name is Karen Getch, and I'm an 18 Ford Drive. I would like to address the lady who just spoke. I do not believe I ever saw her at any of the meetings that have been held by the select, by the finance. There have been hours and hours and hours spent working on this budget. I do not believe she has attended any of those.
Thank you. Before you come up, is there anyone else that would like to be heard?
Yeah, and I didn't attend any of those, but what does that matter?
Excuse me.
I'm a taxpayer and allowed to speak.
Yes, in the back. Was there someone that wanted to speak?
Hi, Fred Santoro, 11 Roosevelt, East Lyme. I don't know if somebody either from Board of Finance or from Finance or would maybe explain, I've been to 3 meetings now, and since the last meeting, there was money that came back from the state that's going towards the town, someone towards the town side, and someone to the Board of Education side. I just wanted to know how that affects what we talked about at the last meeting. How does that change some of the numbers? And also, when I look at the graphs, I don't see anything about the unassigned fund balance. What money went into the budget to try to decrease the mill rate and how that's changed since we got the money back from the state. So if someone can explain those things, I think that would be helpful to the taxpayers.
Thank you, Mr. Santoro. Would anyone like to answer the question from the town board?
Yeah, so there were two parts to what we received. There was, what was it, 200? Yeah, it was 244,000, and that went to the Board of Ed, and we didn't make any reductions in their budget. We had made reductions before, so we didn't reduce their budget by that amount. There was the other amount was 536,000, and that went right in to the fund and to revenue, and it reduced the mill rate. So the mill rate came down by that amount. So it went right to reduce the budget. Does that answer your question?
So the amount of money, I think that was $2 million, I think originally that was going to be taken from the fund balance. So that had 1 million, so that hasn't changed.
We didn't, well, go ahead, you want to adjust the fund balance? We didn't adjust it on that amount that we received.
Okay.
Dr. Fred, it was, I can't remember what meeting it was, but the use of fund balance did get adjusted to $1,362,000, the direct, same number that we have cash capital. So that was increased, I believe, after the public hearing on the 27th, I believe it was. And then on the I believe it was the 8th of May, the Board of Finance adjusted the intergovernmental grants, that increase of $536,000, which directly offset taxes by $536,000. The Board of Ed piece, they received additional, I think it's like $244,000, Mariana? 236. So their 236 did not come into the operating budget on the town side. It's treated as a grant. Do you concur with that, Mariana? It didn't go through the operating budget on the town side. Town grant, Board of Ed grants were handled differently as per the state.
So could maybe someone explain a little bit better about the Board of Education? Does that mean the cuts that were made to the Board of Ed budget were then removed? Or is that the cuts that were made, are those staying in place? And then where does that money then go?
So I can't really speak to the Board of Ed budget. I don't know if Mariana or...
The cuts stay in place. That additional money comes to the towns. Those additional monies, the cut stays in place. We're at around $515,000 that the Board of Ed has to work to find some further reductions to the increase. With that additional money, the 236, goes to the town in an account to the Board of Ed and then use over the course of next year for offsetting the cost.
Would anyone else like to be heard?
This has been a helpful conversation because it wasn't very transparent how the town...
Use name.
I'm sorry, Steve Larson, 185 Main Street. This last discussion was helpful because I did see the $536,000 adjustment to the town revenues, and that does match what the state gave us. I still don't completely follow the bouncing ball as it relates to the Board of Ed, because if you look at our budget, the ECS line item remains unchanged in the budget. It doesn't show the $234,000. So I'm not really quite sure why that wasn't adjusted and why that did not result in additional reduction to the mill rate. So if you could, if one of the two of you can answer that, that would be helpful.
This was all new information coming from the state, that the government released these dollars. From what we know, the town can't go and adjust the education budget because the budget had already been approved and moved forward by the Board of Finance. That's the reason why. So that money will go.
The statute that was passed to provide this money was amended to specifically allow towns to adjust the Board of Education budget as long as they met the normal rules with respect to year over year.
That's not for education. That's not for education. That's how we do it.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard?
That's okay. I'm going to be short. Mike Schultz, Lovers Lane, East Lyme. Through you, Mr. Moderator, I would request an answer regarding failure to follow the town charter. If somebody could respond to that. If you want to do it offline, I suppose that's fine. But the state allows for lawsuits if we don't address this issue. Thank you.
So in my presentation, I expanded it to cover those items that representative from the Board of Finance would have presented. So we presented the numbers. Well, we do have Superintendent Newton, did you want to address? I know you had a presentation.
I'm happy to do a presentation, yes, if Board of Finance and you'd like to.
Oh, yes, if you
Sure.
could, that'd be great. Thank you.
James, can you cue that for me? Good evening again, everyone. Let me run through some slides that have been shown before, but some of you might not have been part of those discussions or had that information. So from the beginning, the Board of Education operating budget starts its development early in the school year, back around October. In January, I presented to the Board of Education, and if you look all the way to the right, just to expedite a few pieces of information, the Board of Education settled on a 6.31% increase. I had proposed to them a 6.79% increase. You can see the reflected dollar amount there. So that was what the Board of Education had adopted in January, or in February timeframe, a 6.31%. In doing that, going again from where we were originally, 8.57, all the way down through reductions, the Board of Education reduced 8.5 positions. 2 one-year-only elementary positions, 1 teacher at Flanders School, a half-time secretary at the Dining Center, a 12-month high school administrator was reduced to 10 months, and we cut 5 paraeducator positions as well. So you can see that the Board of Ed reduced 8.5 positions. Then the budget went on to the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance, we presented to them in March. They made reductions to the Board of Education's budget, brought it down originally to a 4.42%, made a further reduction at a later meeting, brought it down to a 4.26% increase. Then, if you look all the way to the right after the public hearing, they reinstated around $360,000, which brought it back up to a 4.84% increase, and that was approved at the public hearing that had occurred recently. So that's where you saw for Selectman Cunningham's numbers, the 4.84 for Board of Education increase. Board of Ed still has to fund a net reduction of $514,000. They're working off of this list right here. So this is what the Board of Ed will grapple with to find that additional $514,000. So you can see a number of items here. Not all of this will be cut, but this is the list of areas that the Board of Ed is working off of, and will have to identify a number of these to find that $514,000. Board of Education budget is specifically driven by fixed expenses. As you can see, 95.75% of our operating budget is fixed expenses. It's contracts, salaries, employee benefits, busing, tuition, transportation, utilities, leases, insurance, etc. So 96% is fixed expenses. Just a little bit on projected future enrollment. Everyone's always curious, is enrollment going up or down? Our enrollment is fairly flat. It's going down a little bit. You can see 25-26, 2,497. This slide actually I've been sharing now for the last 2-3 years, and it's been pretty accurate. We're currently at 2,450, just under 2,450. So you can see 25-26, that's pretty darn close to what was projected. So it's supposed to start to creep up a little bit, but for the most part out to 2030, 233, stay relatively flat. With that being said, as a district, it was mentioned earlier, and thank you, Mr. Schultz, for mentioning, we have a high-quality district and have excelled. Our schools have excelled across the state, and the East Lyme Public Schools is recognized as one of the best school districts in the state. There is an item called an accountability index, which has 12 indicators. It's brought forth by the state. This is just area districts around us, regional look. You can see where East Lyme stands, and the 5 districts that are ahead of us as it pertains to the accountability score. Guilford is the only one that has a lower per pupil expenditure. So all those other districts, the other 4, spend more money on their students than East Lyme does. So that's an indicator of we're getting a good bang for our buck. You look at what's called the district reference group. This is 27 districts that are similar in socioeconomic status as East Lyme is. You can see where East Lyme stands through the accountability index state score. Doing well. And again, those districts, those 5 districts that are ahead of us, vary in their per pupil costs. Some are much, much higher. So just to give a picture of how well our public school system is doing. And the last one, I threw this in. This is not in your packet. I added this today. There was some recent comments that were made at a Board of Finance meeting in relation to, we're flat for our schools. And I wanted to correct that publicly, that we're not flat. You can see in the last couple of years, our English language arts, math, and science continue to go in the right direction. So I just wanted to share that information as well. So we're doing very well. I think our community is getting the best bang for the buck again for what we provide for our students here at East Lyme. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newton. Would anyone else like to be heard? Seeing no more hands, we will move to item number 2 on the agenda. I'll entertain a resolution to adopt the 5-year capital plan. Do I hear a resolution? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second. Would anyone like to be heard on this, or would there be a presentation?
As I said earlier, the 5-year capital plan is less specific than the plan for the next year, because there are a lot more variables. But a lot of time was spent with the various departments to come up with what we thought was the most believable and ascertainable numbers for the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman. Would anyone else like to be heard?
Brighton, 26 Huntley Lane. I just had a question in regards to that 5-year. It was put up earlier. But what do we expect to happen with Public Works in 2029? Or public safety, where it's like 5 times or 4 times the amount increase? What's expected that that number goes up so high?
Would anyone like to?
It's hard to predict as far as public safety. The further we get out, I know that there's a refurbishment and replacement of some of the fire engines. That's included in that 5-year plan. We also cycle through police cars as the police cars get used up. We have purchases of police cars further out. So we try to predict what we're going to need as far as equipment, but it's hard to be accurate because you don't know how quickly things are going to wear out. So we do the best we can in trying to predicting, but it tries to give us some sense of our capital needs into the future. So it's really a prediction. It's less specific than what we're going to need next year. Does that help to understand? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard? Seeing no more hands, we will move to question. All those in favor of adopting the 5-year capital improvement plan, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Say nay. The motion carries. That being the last item on the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting to referendum by machine vote to take place on May 21st, 2026 in the East Lyme Community Center from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Do I have a motion? Is there a motion? Do we have a second? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.